why has home care become so attractive of an industry?
That's just the whole industry is a growth opportunity.
We turned that business into a $6.5 million business.
Before you explore franchise options, take a few minutes to understand how you are wired. The assessment link is below. Welcome to Franchise Focus. Today we're talking about one of the most respected brands in home care, Assisting Hands Home Care. The senior population continues to grow rapidly, and more families are looking for trusted in-home care solutions that allow loved ones to remain independent while receiving the support they need. That demand has made home care one of the most compelling sectors in franchising today. Joining me are two people who bring great insights into the conversation. Dan Durney leads franchise development and works with prospective owners exploring the opportunity. Robb Winiecki works closely with franchisees in the field and understands what it takes to build and grow successful territories. We're going to talk about the home care industry, what makes Assisting Hands different, the realities of building a home care business, and what prospective franchise owners should know before entering the space. Dan and Robb, welcome to Franchise Focus.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Laura.
So great to have you here. If you both could just give us a little, backdrop about your entree into franchising and Assisting Hands, that would be great.
Well, I'll start. I've been in franchise development for 23 years, specializing in area representative regional development for various brands across the industry, mostly service brands. And that's the space I enjoy being most. I've been back with Assisting Hands for 7 years this last March, and just love working with the management of the company and the franchisees.
That's great.
Yeah, my wife and I, we've been with Assisting Hands for 18 years. We signed on as the seventh franchisee with the company back in 2008. We ran our office for about 14 years. Assisting Hands came to us, offered us the opportunity to be area representatives for the state of Georgia. And so we've kind of transitioned into that role.
Fantastic. What a rich history. Robb, do you mind getting into a little bit about what drew you to this industry?
Yeah, so my wife and I, many, many years ago, were looking into always wanting to own our own little family-owned business. And I was basically in retail food, and we kind of thought that the franchise would kind of be around that. And so I went on this big, long search for all these different franchises in the food world. We could never really land on anything. Every time I brought something to my wife, she was kind of like, that's kind of like here today, gone tomorrow, not really a strong thing. She was looking for something kind of long term. She's a respiratory therapist by trade. She was working in the hospitals. And while I was on this search for a small business for us, there's this recurring theme that she kept on coming home from the hospital saying upon discharge, another patient wanted, or their family wanted me to come home with them and take care of them. Because she was working in respiratory with his oxygen, she was dealing with a lot of people with COPD, congestive heart failure, emphysema, really taxing to get around the home while I'm on oxygen, like I said, and just really needing help at home. And so a lot of family members or spouses were asking her, can you please follow us home and help us take care of our loved one? She always said no, because she said, I work full-time at the hospital and I'm a full-time mom. But while I was on the search for a franchise, she kept on coming home with that message. And I just said, well, there's franchises out there that do that. Maybe you should quit your job and I'll stay and do what I do. She said, I don't really know anything about running a business. She's like, I just know how to take care of people. And so I said, I got the operational experience. There's franchises out there that do this. They'll give us the foundation and the working model for this. And so we explored a whole bunch of different concepts at that time. And we kind of landed on Assisting Hands because of the model that they work under, I think, which we'll kind of get into a little bit later. But when we first started, I did back office, billing, payroll, outside marketing, sales, and my wife did caregiver hiring, HR training, kind of meeting with the families and coordinating the care. And we turned that business into a $6.5 million business before we actually sold it. So
Fantastic. That is quite impressive. Quite impressive, building such a wonderful business. Dan, let's start with the big picture here. Like, why has home care become so attractive of an industry?
Well, partly because the industry itself is exploding with the silver tsunami, as we like to refer to it. But the statistics vary somewhat, but the lowest I've heard is 10,000 people a day turn 65 in the U.S. And I put that number in a spreadsheet because 10,000 was kind of a hard number to wrap my head around. So I put it in a spreadsheet. It works out to be every 8.64 seconds.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the
Yeah.
demand is insatiable, and 78 million plus baby boomers, co-boomers.
Yeah. Go boomers. That's great. No, I mean, it is. It's such a growing need. I see it every day, just on my own street. Somebody new that's needing care. So, Rob, from your perspective, working directly with the franchisees, or maybe you guys can walk through what that area developer model is, because that is so unique with assisting hands. Let's start there.
So we call it the area representative model, but area developer is another name for it. Back in the day when I first started, it used to be called regional developer. And it's basically an opportunity that certain franchisees have who have shown and demonstrated operational proficiency to then make an additional investment to help coach and mentor franchisees within a given market. So it's an extra level of support for the franchisees from someone that's has operational experience. And the area representative shares in the royalties and the franchise fees. So as they're developing out their markets, they're compensated on the front end from the share of the commission for the franchise fee, and then more importantly, sharing the royalty on the back end.
Rob, you mentioned how it really escalated or your growth. Walk through, how someone comes on board and they work with. You're saying it's just an added level, so working with the franchisor and the area rep. How
Yeah,
does that
kind of
work?
like Dan said, I mean, it's I like to say it's a win-win-win situation where that, obviously what our main goal is that we want the franchisee to be successful in their endeavor, right? And when they're successful, the franchise company is successful, and in return, I am successful as well. So we all have a mutual benefit in the franchisee's success. I make up over one of 20 area reps throughout
Okay.
the country for assisting hands. And so, and like Dan said, like we're all kind of proven operators. We know we've got a
Hmm.
good handle on the industry, the business, how to run an office really efficient, how to scale, things of that nature. And so basically, as they go through the whole franchise, coming into the franchise and like the discovery of the franchise and working like with you, Laura, basically after they kind of like sign their paperwork in a sense, that's where us as area, developers kind of help them as far as going into their market, helping them with office selection, helping them with hiring their staff, helping them with
Okay.
caregiver interviews, helping them with outside marketing, going, boots on the ground, going to different businesses, hospitals, doctors, things of that nature, along with helping them as far as marketing in their area and just, how to post the right way for caregivers, going out on their first intakes, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Doing being there, going through like caregiver orientation with them and just kind of giving them that model. And typically it really accelerates the learning curve, and it kind of gives them a little knowing that they have peace of mind that they can always kind of call us. My wife and I are available to them pretty much 24/7 as they come across things. Like any business, you come across things that you've never come across, but you can lean on people that have been through it. And so it's a high level of support during those first, like basically, 12 months.
Yeah.
It's continued support ongoing from the whole life of their franchise. But we've noticed that after about month 18, things kind of slow down with them in a sense, but we're always here for them. And then my wife and I, we make a point that every quarter we visit every office in our AR and just follow up with them. It's not like to go in there and see, what are you doing right and what are you doing wrong? It's just, how can we help you grow? How can we
Yeah.
help you scale? What's next on your list, So and it's just a support. And again,
Right.
it's a mutual benefit. The more successful they are, the more successful everybody is. But bottom line, it's just about, caring for people when it comes down to it in this industry and just helping them care for people the best way. And I've always said it in this industry, if you, maybe it's any business really, but I just always said, if you have happy clients in this industry, happy clients and happy caregivers, you'll have a happy business.
Yeah.
It just kind of flows naturally.
I would
When
throw into
someone's
there. I'm sorry,
Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
would throw in there too that there's also assistance pre-opening in regard to licensure in the states that have licensure.
Yeah.
So it's assistance for getting that taken care of.
Yeah,
That's
and
one.
and my wife and I are walk hand in hand with assisting hands, the franchisor through that. The franchisee still has the corporate support alongside with us,
Mhm.
Right.
so it's a
Okay.
good partnership.
Yep. Yep. So that's a huge differentiator. When someone starts and they got to learn all those components. How does that rollout typically look? And I mean, some people are going to think about the marketing right away and want to understand that. And some are going to think about the operation side. But what's that process? And what helped you build your early success?
It bottom line is the first level of success. I think that especially in home care with this model, what I've seen over the years is I've seen some people try to do it like part time, right? And this is not a part time business. This is, an owner operator business because unlike like a retail shop where you open the doors and maybe customers start coming in right away. With this, when you open up your business, you really have to go out and drive the business
Hmm.
and grow it yourself. And so it takes some time. So just having, that support level of what you need to do to try to grow it in your community, as long with the things that Assisting Hands has done as far as, helping us generate, leads through online or through different avenues. One of the best referral sources that you'll have in this industry is in your own community. So out there networking and how to do that right. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest key to this business and for initial franchisees. So,
That seems to be the biggest hurdle for people I'm talking to, that they're afraid of that, afraid that it's either too competitive, or, how will they be able to do it? How do they get in? Maybe we can talk through, yeah, there's competition out there, but how do you start building that and get confidence that you can, make that happen?
So as Rob said, it's a lot of networking in the community. You're calling on hospitals, doctors' offices, skilled nursing facilities, rehab centers, discharge planners, social workers, all the people that would be potentially referring clients to you. You can sponsor a booth at a senior expo or a table at ALS fundraiser walk. So just very involved in networking in the community. And that's one of the things that we look for is people that have a sense of community, want to build a business that gives back to the community. And that usually comes up in conversation with you when you're talking with them about what kind of business do you want to have.
Laura,
Absolutely.
can we pause for 1 second?
Sure. Absolutely.
Apologize that I plugged into a power strip that was not turned on, so my computer was about to die. I apologize.
Good.
Boy,
No, good timing. Not a problem. Anytime we want to pick back up. So yeah, let's jump back into that community involvement. You talked about the level of different community things you can do. Yeah, do you want to dive deeper into that in terms of, does the digital marketing start first, or in the community development, or you're kind of running those concurrently? How long does it take to start
currently
building
the
those?
digital marketing takes longer to get up and running,
Okay.
which is normal. So you're pretty
Yep.
much out hitting the streets, boots on the ground as soon as you're licensed. And this is one of
Yep.
those industries where you can't pre-market until you have your license. So you have,
Right.
have to
Right.
start doing that networking. And then there are also folks that do some paid leads or through like lead aggregators to start the wheels going. But there's a lot. There's three departments in an agency. The first department I call internal ops and HR, which is the recruiting, hiring, and training of caregivers. So you're actually pre-hiring caregivers before you open your doors, because you don't want to start getting referrals and you don't have any caregivers. So
Right.
you're always hiring ahead of the need. And then so you need a scheduler and a recruiter. And then the second department is accounting, the billing, invoicing, and payroll. And usually the franchisees do that themselves. You don't have to hire someone for that, but it's a important department to be aware of, because as your business grows, somebody needs to be paying attention to that. And then the third department is marketing. So the two things that don't work, Rob alluded to one of them, is trying to do it part-time. And the second thing that doesn't work is one person, no matter how talented and skilled they think they are, trying to do everything themselves. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You got to have the people in place to be able to help drive the business.
Rob, how do you help people decide on those components, like what the owner should be doing, what they should be hiring to?
The first question is, what do you think your strengths are? You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And some people think they're better at some things than that they are. But, typically I always say that nobody can sell or market your business better than you, the owner,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're out in the community and you're talking to people. When you kind of say that, I'm the owner, it kind of has an impact. But with that being said, there are a lot of people who are with Assisting Hands that outside marketing sales is not their thing. And they kind of know, kind of going into it from a capital standpoint, that they're going to have to hire somebody to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on your skill set. And some people think they have the skill set of the outside marketing, and then they kind of quickly realize, like, I'm not comfortable doing this, so I need to hire somebody to do it for me. But it's more of just kind of a personal feel kind of thing. But then
Yep.
there's been times where, when it comes down to outside marketing sales, a lot of times what it comes down to is, and what kind of Dan kind of touched on, is activity, right? Actually going out and doing the things that you need to do,
Hmm.
and holding yourself accountable to do those. And sometimes as owners, if we're not properly staffed in the office to help us with other things like phone calls or caregiver recruiting, and you're not out, knocking on doors, and you get pulled in other directions, sometimes the outside marketing can fall off, and it's very hard to grow this business if you're not properly staffed internally, and people are in the right places.
Yeah, yeah. How much time do you think someone, is spending on the outside marketing versus the recruiting?
Yeah, I typically tell my new franchisees that what I've learned over the years of owning my own assisting hands was just that most people don't want to be bothered Monday after mornings and afternoons because they're kind of catching up from the weekends. And
Hmm.
most people don't want to be bothered late Fridays. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were heavily outside the four wall doors for the four walls for me.
Hmm.
And then, a lot of it was, Friday afternoons was trying to plan for the following week. And then on Monday mornings, we kind of met with our team internally and kind of
Hmm.
set our game plan, what's going to happen inside the office. And then I would also kind of set my plan for what's going to happen, over the next course of 3 days for me. So a good solid 3 days a week
Yeah.
can really just help grow your business in your area and just kind of get your name and your brand out there.
Fantastic.
And
When
electronically, just to address some of the other things
Yeah.
that Assisting Hands does, we build and maintain a website for the franchisee. We set up and maintain and post in behalf of the franchisees on 4 different platforms and social media.
That's
We
great.
do all the content creation. We produce videos and commercials that can be repurposed on different platforms. So there's a lot of support. And then, as Rob mentioned, we also help with crafting a job board, job descriptions, et cetera, as part of the recruiting. So there's a lot of support from that standpoint.
Okay.
Yeah, and nowadays, like I was telling you before, Laura, when I first started, like in 2008, I mean, the technology has really changed this industry a lot from when I first started. But also, with just the franchise in general, is just that I guess the marketing and the messaging from the
Okay.
brand has come a long way. And we use an internal person for that, and that all of the marketing material probably for the last like 15 years from all the different offices across the country is kind of all stored in one location. And so you as a new franchisee have this ability to look at all this different material that others, you know, franchisees have used, and you can kind of tailor it to your personal office. And then if you want something else or something unique, internally Assisting Hands helps the franchisees develop that piece. So
Do people tend to start specializing in certain referral sources, like, or I mean, whether it's, VA or, I don't know, or certain doctor's office or certain hospital? Like, how
Kind of
does
depends on
that
the
happen,
nature.
or you just kind of wide net?
It kind of depends on the facilities that are in a given territory.
Yeah.
If the person happens to have contacts, we have 15 in our system. We have 15 nurses, 3 social workers, 2 physical therapists, and a pharmacist. That's as close as we get to the industry. So nobody has ever owned a home care agency prior to joining Assisting Hands. So we have people from education, military, IT, consulting, banking, finance, insurance, all kinds of different backgrounds. But because they all have that common theme, is the heart for the senior care business,
Hmm.
they're able to zero in on that focus for the franchisees from a marketing standpoint.
When prospective owners are, speaking to your current franchisees, what themes are they consistently hearing about the support, the culture of the system?
We validate very well our franchisees. We'll tell the candidates, and by the way, it's a very interesting system where the franchisees love doing validation calls.
That
They'll,
Yeah, that's
it's
fantastic.
very unusual.
Yeah.
But the franchisees themselves all went through the same system, so it's kind of a giving back kind of
Hmm.
situation. I tell the candidates to ask for 15, 20 minutes, but beware that the franchisees will talk their ears off. But they'll share that it's a hard business. It's very heartfelt, and things happen, but it's a roll up the sleeves kind of business. But one of our big differentiators is our flexibility, is that we don't micromanage their business. We have all the tools to support them, whichever direction they want to. So to address your question, which direction do you want to go? We can help guide them, and then until they hit their kind of sweet spot, but we don't micromanage them. And that's one of the things the franchisees will validate very well. It's a hard business, 24/7 in nature, but as you put the right people in place and work with the support that is local from the assisting hands area rep as well as the national support, it's very rewarding, and they're going to get that compensation that is not monetary that they want to do by building a business that gives back to the community.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What do you think is the hardest thing for people that are starting maybe in the first 6 months, and then how does that look 18 months in?
For me, the biggest the question is new franchisees always ask is like, should I hire caregivers first or should I try to find clients? And the answer to that question is both. That you got to be doing them together at the same time. Again, the biggest thing that most of them have is just that, am I doing the right thing? Because sometimes, it takes, I don't know, some offices it takes 2 weeks to get their first client. Some offices it takes a month. Some takes two. It takes a while, and it's this. Oh my gosh, did I make the right decision? Because I don't see any money coming in. But it's one of those things that you just got to follow the steps. Work the work, do the stuff that you need to do, and plant those seeds and water those seeds and let those plants grow, and they'll start to produce fruit for you. So that's the biggest thing, is just to kind of keep them kind of centered, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people start to get very nervous when they open up a new
Yeah.
business and they don't see any revenue being generated. It's kind of scary, but that's one of the biggest things that, me as AR, when I'm working with Dan and I'm working with prospective franchisees, I want to make sure that from a capital level, they're capitalized, you know what I mean? So that they can focus on growing their business, versus always afraid that they're not going to be a successful business. So,
Gotcha. When you talk about that capitalize, what are you guys ideally looking for?
So our investment is between 100 and just drew a blank. Hold on a second, Laura. 98,000 and 181,000. So they need to have liquid capital of about 150K, which can be in the form of cash, stocks, retirement funds, home equity, and have a minimum net worth of 450K.
Okay. To be comfortable, do you think, because I usually tell people towards the upper tier of that?
Always, I tell them whether they're opening in California or Alabama, just budget for the 181.
yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. And that carries them through, can that carry them through the first year, or?
Well, the other qualifier is that they can cover their own personal expenses for 12 months while they're ramping up.
Correct.
So that doesn't
that's
mean
what
they're necessarily going to break even then. We've had franchisees break even within a few months, and others take a little longer. Part of that depends on the state they're in and the licensure and some of the requirements that are a little more onerous that might cause some additional hiring that needs to happen in a heavily regulated state.
Gotcha. What do you attribute, Rob, to your success over the years?
The biggest, is the culture. I know it's going to sound kind of weird, but it has to do with the culture of assisting hands. That, right, the home care business, you're actually taking care of somebody's loved one, right? So you got to have that compassion and that care for what you're doing, because when you're taking care of someone's loved one, there's a big responsibility that comes along with that. And that's one of the biggest differentiators. In this industry in a whole, is I've seen a lot of different home care companies open and close, but because the owners really didn't care about the people they were taking care of. The ones that I've seen that have been the most successful are the owners that are truly engaged in their businesses and truly have a passion for caring for people and accepting that responsibility for their loved one. Outside of that, as far as assisting hands is concerned, is the culture that Lane Kofit, our president, really has grown and preaches inside of our home care company. Is just that Lane doesn't talk about, how fast he wants to grow or how big he wants this company to become. What Lane is really focused on is on a steady growth path of hiring quality individuals to be assisting hands franchise owners. And how that kind of bleeds into the franchise company as a whole is just that it's very supportive, assisting hands, as far as sharing, helping other franchisees grow. And we're always giving back to each other. And we all want everybody to do well. Like I always say, like I bleed blue. So you cut me open, I bleed blue, because I totally buy into the culture of assisting hands. And my wife and I are truly involved in helping, the franchisees in our territory grow, and the other ARs are so involved with their franchisees. And because Lane is so very selective sometimes on people that he brings into the company, that they're high quality individuals. And so, like, Dan isn't kidding when people call and do a validation call. You know, most of these people are looking to have maybe 15 or 20 minutes of an owner's time. Owners will, I spend an hour on the phone with people, and I just keep talking about assisting hands until they tell me, stop talking, I'm done. Thank you for your time, because I
Yeah.
just love talking about assisting
Yeah.
hands, because it has a lot to do with the culture internally, as far as you being successful as a franchisee, that there's no level of support that this company won't give you internally through, the corporate people or outside of it. Because again, we're not competing against each other. We all
Hmm.
want each other to grow and be successful. And it truly is, a great group of people. So
No, that
We refer to our franchisees as the FOFO, the family of franchise owners.
that's
And
right.
it's actually an extra level of support. There's really three levels of support: the national team, the area reps in 25 markets, and the network of franchisees that help support each other.
That's fantastic. That's so key. And that's what I always talk with, my candidates. It's really important for you. A lot of them want to focus early on in numbers, and I have to talk strongly with. They're going to be looking that you have that empathy side, but once it's pretty obvious that they have that. I tell them there's some really good brands out there, but you have to fit within the culture and
Right.
find the
Right.
one that really supports you. But I am a firm believer in that rising tides. If you're all looking out for each other to grow, that's huge. I've heard nothing but positive feedback from anybody I've worked with that has even explored outside of options. That, oh yeah, I read good things about assisting hands, which is great. You'd always love to hear that.
Well, and we have a very unique Discovery Day, which really drives home the family culture, because we go out the day before. We do our Discovery Days in person. We don't do virtual, and they're out in Boise, Idaho area, and may involve horseback riding at Lane's Ranch. We go out the day before and go to the hotel, check in, and then we go to Lane and Tammy's home and have dinner with their kids and family, and then saddle up some horses and ride around the property. It's just a bonding thing, and you learn a lot about a person, how they interact with animals too. So
That's a really good, interesting perspective. Yeah. And I love that it's in person. I think, the trend is getting away from that. And I think that
yeah,
that matters a lot.
yeah,
Yeah. There's, the other thing I just kind of put the cherry on top of that is just that, because we are still privately owned and have want to be, I don't know,
Hmm.
equity owned or anything of that nature.
yeah.
And we've actually doubled down on it, just because we just built a new corporate office out there in Boise, Idaho, is just the fact that it has, again, I always kind of comes back to Lane, the president and CEO of the franchise company, and his moral compass. Whenever there's a big decision put in front of Lane, is that he is always looking, is this a win-win for us as a franchise company and a win for our owners? And so I don't really think you get that a lot out there. A lot of times in a corporate environment is this good for the company? Bottom line is, if it's good for the company, we're going to do it. Where Lane is always looking at, is this good for us as a company, and will this help and be beneficial for our franchise owners? And if the answer is yes on both of those, then he typically moves forward with an initiative. So
Biggest growth opportunity you guys see in the next 5 years in the home care industry? Anything specific or?
I
I mean,
think
just the population boom.
just keeping up with the population boom.
Yeah.
That's just the whole industry is a growth opportunity. As far as segments, I think there's some technology opportunities that are going to come into play that will help the families be more cognizant of family members that are maybe their fall risks, because a lot of home care is really helping keep the seniors out of the hospital, because as soon when a fall happens, just the health declines from so many different angles. And so there's some monitoring technologies that we're looking at to help families with those decisions and keeping up on what's going on from that standpoint. What do you think
Yeah,
about that,
and
Rob?
I also say that, from a revenue stream standpoint, right? Like, in this model, what we call is kind of like the low hanging fruit. Whether it's Medicaid, VA, things that are out there, where these different programs that need home care providers in the home to help support these folks in their home, which we kind of call home based community care. We've had a little sprinkling of home based community care in Medicare through Medicare Advantage plans, but it's a very small thing. But the biggest thing for me, I think, a growth opportunity is, there's been some rumbling, right, in Medicare about possibly opening up some avenues for home care from a payer's standpoint. And that's just huge in a sense that because I think as a government, we kind of figure out that from an efficiency standpoint and from a cost standpoint, it's cheaper to really
Yeah.
to keep somebody in their home. And so as we kind of continue to move down this model of home-based community care and how we're going to help support all these seniors, I just naturally in my gut, whether it's next year, whether it's 3 years, whether it's 5 years from now, my gut is telling me that home care and home-based community care, non-medical care will become a part of Medicare at some point in time and be a big payer source for the
Yeah.
industry.
So how wonderful to be in business and ready and already got the connections. Yeah. No, I think I hope that is definitely the case. I think that will be a huge benefit for everyone and keep overall costs down because it'll keep people
Yeah,
health, home protected, etc. Those falls are
exactly.
dangerous.
The other
Yeah.
avenue there is some people have access to benefits that they're not aware of through long-term care and disability insurance policies. So some of the franchisees are doing seminars and educational seminars around that.
Great. No, that's great. Most underrated skill you think for someone that's for a new owner?
People management. That's really because this is not about selling widgets or ice cream or whatever. This is taking care of people and helping. I mean, we use some technology to help match up the clients with the caregivers based on the requirements of the client and the attributes of the caregiver. And as to Rob's point earlier about taking good care of the caregivers, we also track things like are they allergic to pets or smoke, so that they're not
Hmm.
matched up and put in uncomfortable
Oh,
situations.
that's great. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Anything
I
else you
think
think? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to piggyback on Dan, and you know, I come from an industry, in food service in the restaurant industry, where it's a lot of it is all based around the guest experience, right? Taking care of the guests, making sure they have a
Hmm.
good experience. The customer's always right, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And again, it's just that, like Dan said, is that in this business, to be successful in this industry, is that you have to have the compassion and the want to care for people. And, when my wife and I first started our business, I used to say, people are like, why do you want to home care? And I used to say, because it's a feel good business. And she would say, stop saying that because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But after a while, when you actually do make an impact on
Hmm.
people's lives and families' lives and families truly appreciate what you've done for them and how you supported them and you actually see the impact you're making on people's lives, it truly is a feel good business because you're actually making an impact or a difference on people's lives. Whether it's the whole transition is just from a recovery standpoint or through end of life, you do play a part in these people's lives. And when you do a good job of taking care of their loved ones, they truly appreciate it.
And you
I mean,
sparked a comment I was thinking about too, Rob, that we're not just targeting, I mean, the message is targeting seniors, but we're not just serving seniors. There are people that are recovering from hip and knee replacements, and not all of them are seniors. We've even had a few franchisees that have had clients that are women that are high-risk pregnancies, where they're on bed rest for a few months before they give birth or a
mm,
little afterward. Special needs, Alzheimer's, dementia, and autism. And a handful of our franchisees have built a business model around developmentally disabled adults as well. So our name is not restricted to only seniors, and neither are our service offerings.
that's fantastic. Love it. Yeah. It's a good point about your name too. Anything else you guys think is important to share with people considering getting into business ownership?
What I think is amazing nowadays is just the fact that Laura, you kind of talked about earlier, was just that, I went from my wife and I first opened, I went from paper charting that needed to be turned in and like there was no cloud based, computing and you had to be in your office and it was just, but
Everything's in the app
what,
now.
yeah, with the way the technology is that a lot of these owners can work basically remote from their phone, run their whole business through their phone. Now, a lot of the states that we're in require us to have a physical address, a physical office,
Hmm.
but it doesn't mean that you have to be there. That things that my wife and I couldn't do back in 2008 and 9 when we first opened our business, people can do from their phone, from their kitchen table and run their business. It's amazing to me the technology that has happened in this business over the last 10 to 12 years and the way that has brought on a lot more freedom in a sense as an owner that even though you're involved daily in your business, you're not confined to quote unquote an office per se.
Right. And the speed at which you can execute things, I'm sure
Yeah.
it helps.
But as Rob said, just to clarify, this is definitely an office-based thing. It's not a home-based business. So your staff is and the clients never go to the office. It's for the. How many clients did you have go to your office in 17 years, Rob?
Yeah, we usually had about 3 to 5 families a year that actually come to the office, but that's because they want to have a private conversation, typically away from somebody who was going to get the care. So
I wasn't crazy
not
about it,
very,
so they
not
wanted to have
very
it.
often.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I've really enjoyed this. I think this is very valuable. You clearly have a fantastic model, strong culture, strong support. Love hearing more about the area developer opportunities and how that really assists people to scale their business even better, faster. So thank you again for your time.
Laura, thank you for
Well,
inviting us
thank you for,
on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
yeah,
you
thank you
guys
for
think
having us.
I enjoyed it. Thank you again.
All right.